Hello and welcome. My name is Sydney Rain, and for those of you who are new here, welcome. Today I have a guest.
Hey guys, this is Dapo, and this is my sweet and lovely girlfriend Sydney,
Yes.
and we're here filming our Q&A.
Yay. So if you're familiar with my channel, you probably know that I typically talk about lock care and herbalism and just like general holistic wellness, but today I wanted to do something a little different just because I feel like YouTube is where I share a lot about myself and my life, and I cover a lot of different topics within that, and dapo is like a very significant part of my life that I typically don't share on the internet. I feel like I'm pretty protective about my connections, especially with people that are close to me, but we've been together for about 3 years. I kind of wanted to do a video where I kind of like opened up our relationship a bit and just kind of had like a very open conversation about what it's like to be in a relationship and to date and just kind of like be in that world. I actually made a post many months ago in like November asking y'all what questions you had about my relationship. In between then and now, just like a lot of stuff happened and we just never ended up making that video. So I thought because Valentine's Day is coming up that this would be another good time to like talk about it and bring it up. So with that being said, a lot of the topics that we're going to talk about today are heavily based off of the questions that y'all had. I know at least for me, it's always interesting when I get to hear about other people's relationships, and I guess outside of just like public forums and Twitter talking about what they think a relationship should look like and be like and what should happen within it, I love just hearing stories of people that are actually in relationships and just simply want to talk about it, not from like a perspective of like this is why we're the best and this is why you should do this rather than this, but just like honest conversations. So hopefully that's what y'all get from this. Honestly, I don't really have any expectations on how this will go, but I just know that I want it to feel like you're learning with us. I feel like in conversation, whenever we have a conversation, there's always something to be learned, and so this is just kind of like the first time we're going through that process, but also with like a camera interface. So I don't know, I'm excited in that sense. But I think it would make the most sense to just kind of like start at the beginning, which is how we met and how this relationship even came to be. So, Dapo.
So Sydney and I have been knowing each other throughout our lives from church, but we never were really closely connected. We never like hung out together. We were probably like one of 3 black families at North Park
I think
Community
we were
Church.
like the black community
So
at that church.
yeah, so like you know all the other black people who are in your vicinity when you're surrounded by white people.
Yeah.
When the pandemic happened, we both happened to be back in town in Fresno from our different colleges, because I was in LA and she was in San Francisco. She made a post on her story about how she was doing research for this organization she was a part of. I just was interested about it and what she was doing, and I actually attended the conference through Zoom, and it was pretty cool because after that then I was like creating conversation with her through Instagram DMs, and then I asked her on a date. Come November, she was nudging me to
I
make
forced
things
him.
official because I've never been in a relationship in the past, so
That's true.
I think it's I was just like sort of like winging it. I never had gone that close to a girl before to where it was like, are you gonna ask me out? Or like none of my friends had girlfriends. We were kind of like the geeks, so I feel like it was just like I didn't know like the process of asking a girl out. So
It was kind of funny because I guess Dapo was someone that I did indeed know like a majority of my life, but had never really considered in that way and like romantically. So it was just like a weird coincidence that we ended up going to the same community college and recognizing each other, and then going to completely different schools across California, and then coming back because of COVID and the pandemic and like reconnecting and forming a relationship with someone that I never would have expected that to happen with. So I don't know, like it's really cool, and it's always funny when we tell people how we met, because it's like, well, we actually met in like the 3rd grade, but we didn't start dating until like college. So it's a really interesting situation where like we had crossed paths multiple times and just like we didn't really come together until later on though. So I don't know. It's just, yeah, it's cool. And just because I don't think we've said it yet, we have been dating since November 18th,
2020.
2020 or 2021?
2021.
Yes, November 18th, 2021. So we are like 3 years and some change in, and we've been living together for half of that time because we moved in together about 1.5 years into the relationship. And I feel like that really impacted what it meant to be in a relationship and what it meant for our daily routine, because we only had like 1.5 years of like dating and living with our families and being able to go on dates and do things before moving in together and essentially like actually living our lives together. And I would say since then a lot has changed, because we dated in Fresno, but we lived together first in Los Angeles. There was like a lot of things that were changing, which I feel like not only helped the relationship, but was definitely also like a barrier, just because when you move, you know, like there's so much newness, you're kind of like forced to create the lifestyle that you want to have. And so moving in with each other while we were also moving and just in a new environment, I think it opened up a lot of space for us to create a routine without stepping on each other's toes and feeling like we were already set in our routine and now we have to change it, because we're both in a position where we had to change already. And so it was just kind of like learning to live together through this change. But I will say, at least on my end, I think it also put a lot of pressure too, because there was so many stressors about moving to a new city and having to, on top of that, also navigate living with someone and being in a relationship. Moving definitely put a lot of pressure for sure on our relationship, especially in the beginning, just because we were still very fresh, and also it was just like a stressful time. I feel like it was a very big like make or break point for our relationship as well, because it was either like we make this work now and we live together, or we very quickly learn that like this is not going to work out for us, and then it would be like a whole different conversation.
I would say my experience in Los Angeles was about the same. I remember just like really overthinking it ahead of time, like thinking it was going to be world changing. Both of us are pretty respectful of each other's space and time, so we made it work by just communicating. And like I feel like it has benefited my life, because we're always there for each other if we need anything, like just someone to talk to, someone to hug. It's something that I really cherish in my everyday life.
Yeah, and this was kind of like a general answer to one of the questions that was asked, but to be more specific, what was asked was what has changed since being together. I feel like I've learned a lot about myself and how I deal with problems. I've done a lot of inner work on myself, and I feel like that's all fine and dandy until you actually have to like apply it to your life, and that's when you really find out if the stuff that you're doing is actually working. And so I feel like it was a really interesting reflection to live with someone else and actually see how I am in these environments and in certain situations, and be able to actually adjust and learn to embrace somebody and coexist with someone.
I would say what has changed for me since being in a relationship and living together, I would say, is new experiences. It's just seeing someone else's perspective on life and different things. Like I hike more now. Like beforehand,
Earth girl.
I wouldn't really like necessarily plan a weekend hike, but when we were living in LA together, we were going on hikes in Griffith Park like almost every week. It was just like really cool to see like different places and like with someone else, and like it kind of makes you more brave in everyday life because you know you have someone there with you.
And I feel like another thing too that is interesting once you are in like a committed relationship with someone is also learning how to maintain your own sense of individuality as well. For me, I struggled a lot with learning the balance between being an individual but also giving in and enjoying the experience. It's kind of tricky when you include someone else in your life that you care about, and you want to be influenced by them, and you want to have someone that allows you to not always be like super independent. And for me to actually learn how to rely on somebody in a healthy way was something that I kind of struggled with in the beginning as well, just because I felt like relying on someone was inherently negative, which I don't think it is. Learning to be interdependent was something that I struggled with for sure, but I feel like as the relationship grew and we both grew in our understanding of each other, I learned how to be more independent within the relationship and really learn what I liked and how to maintain that sense of self within a relationship without feeling like I was just drowning in like the we of it all, you know, and still being able to express myself and be independent and enjoy the things I like to do before I was in a relationship. I feel like a lot of the things that I was interested in still transferred over. I don't really feel like I had to change any part of myself when coming into this relationship. And I feel like that really just comes down to who Dapo is as well, and not feeling like I had to change and feeling very safe with him. And so I feel like as an individual, I've only grown in the relationship. And like he said as well, like it's nice to be with someone and express that bravery and explore and feel like you have a safe space to come back to.
Yes, I would say as an individual, this relationship has shaped me by becoming more sensitive to other people's needs and just everyday life, such as like what people are going through, because you kind of see it up front and up close and personal. You're seeing different sides of someone every day. So I feel like it's really helped me in that aspect, like understanding what someone needs and at what time, and just like being more attentive to other people around me. And now we're gonna segue into the family aspect of our relationship. So our families have known each other like since we were in church together growing up. So when I first re-met her family, it was awesome because I felt immediately accepted, and I think we were going places like already. Like we went on trips together to the coast, and like her family showed me like a great time, and it was just like almost like re-meeting family friends.
Yeah, that was one thing that I think was really cool. And it was also less pressure for me too, because like I didn't have the pressure of being like, hello family, this is some random person that I met and I like them, so I hope you like them too. You know, like there was already that familiarity there. And so it was really just like getting over the having to show my family that there's someone that I care about enough to like want them to meet. That was kind of like nerve-wracking. And outside of that, like it was really chill from there. I think for my parents' sake, it was really nice to feel like they could trust the person that I was with, and there was that familiarity to be like, okay, like cool, like I actually know who you are, so I'm not like, I'm getting to know you, because they didn't know him at the age that they met him again, but it wasn't just like some stranger. And I think it was very much the same also with Dapo's mom. It was kind of funny because like I was super nervous, you know, and Dapo just like straight up just like pulled me into his house and he's like, okay, here you go. And his mom was like on the couch or something. It was very casual, but to me, I was like, my heart was beating. I was like lightheaded because I was just like nervous, you know, and she was like, oh, you grew up, you know, like it was very casual. It was like that for both of our families, which is nice. I feel like that made it really easy with the family relations in the beginning. I would say past that point though, I feel like I have kind of gotten like the short end of the stick as far as like family relationships go past that first meeting, just because I think I definitely feel a lot more pressure from Dapo's side of the family to be, I don't even know what, but I just feel like there's a lot more pressure and a lot more conditions to our relationship on Dapo's side of the family than my family has for Dapo himself. And so that's been something that's been kind of hard, especially because I kind of grew up watching that same situation. Like I experienced it. Like my mom didn't really get along with my dad's mom, and so I grew up knowing what it felt like to be the kids of a family that only saw one side of the family because one of my parents didn't really care for the other side. And going into this relationship, I didn't know how the family relationships would be, but I just knew that was like not a situation I ever wanted to be in, just because I had experienced it. And so to kind of like realize that that was literally the experience that I was having was really stressful to me, and it still is stressful to me just because it's something that I don't want, and it's really hard on my end to like navigate, just because I feel like there's nothing I could do past what I have been doing, which is just kind of like trying to still continue to show up and hopefully see improvement.
Yeah, I would say from my perspective, like my family loves and accepts Sydney for who she is. Yeah, I feel like I've done my best to bring her around the family just to show them that she's really a great person through and throughout, and they have warmed up to her, and we'll see in the future how how much better it gets.
I think because there were definitely some lower points in that like dynamic, I'm a bit jaded still towards his family, and I think it's more of like a defense mechanism. I really do think that they are like nice people. Like I think Dapo's family is great, but I just think there have been some bumps in that dynamic that have made it hard for me to want to remain super open. And then also because of that, it makes it hard probably for them to feel open with me, just because like when I'm closed off, I'm closed off. And so I know for sure that's a part of it too. And I will say too, I feel like of the major topics of disagreement that we have in our relationship, I think family has definitely been one of them, just because I know it's a big source of anxiety and insecurity for me in the relationship, to feel like I'm not fully accepted by his family. I think when it comes to like disagreement and communication, we both have very different approaches. I think I'm a lot more forward and blunt with my emotions, and I'm a lot more expressive as well. I think at times that's made it hard for us to kind of like see eye to eye on things, just because the way we approach these topics and conversations is so vastly different, that I think definitely, especially in like the beginning of the relationship, I felt more like our disagreements weren't ever truly like resolved, just because I wasn't hearing like the exact words that I wanted to hear. Sometimes it could be hard when we do get in disagreements, because I'm looking for very specific particular things, and I've just kind of learned that what I'm looking for is something that I myself am only looking for, and he has his own approach and ways of resolving things. His communication style is just a lot different than mine, and so I feel like that's made it hard sometimes when we disagree. And I think between the two of us too, I'm a lot more open than he is when it comes to expressing my emotions and being honest about how I truly feel about things. So I feel like throughout the relationship, I've been the one that's really been like bringing stuff up and like talking about it, and literally making problems out of nowhere, I would say. But like not like the problems didn't exist, but like picking random moments to bring up issues that I notice, you know? And so I feel like I definitely come off as more argumentative than I mean to be, but it's just because I would rather just face something regardless of the time and what it is and what's happening around me. And when things sit on me, they sit on me like heavily. Like I fully sit in my emotions. And so it makes it really hard for me to just overcome things and continue as life as usual, or like routine as usual, when I feel something.
I would say my communication style is less frequent as like Sydney's. I'm a pretty quiet person, so I try to sort of like figure things out in my own head before I speak to someone else. So I feel like a lot of times maybe Sydney will come to me with a question or concern, and in her head she's feels as if it's something that hasn't been discussed, and it probably hasn't, because I maybe have been just thinking about it on my own. It's good and it's bad, because you know sometimes you have to reach out to someone else to talk to something with them before it becomes a bigger issue. So it's just learning when to speak up, and I feel like that when you do speak up and you do talk about the topic, it can be resolved a lot easier than when you try to just go through it on your own.
Yeah, and that very much is true, because to me, when things aren't being talked about, I assume that it's because they're not being thought about. In my head, because I'm someone who's like, oh, there's a problem, I'm going to say something. When something's not being said, my instinct is to be like, okay, it hasn't been said because I'm the only one that cares about it. And it's most definitely still an issue that we do have. I wouldn't say like we've come over that aspect yet, but I feel like recent conversations have definitely helped shed some more light on this topic as well. And I feel like sometimes just a better understanding of why an issue is an issue is helpful, even if the issue itself isn't fully resolved. I would say over the last like major disagreements we've had, as in like we have actively been either arguing or had something to say for more than a day, because I would say most of the issues that we have are resolved within like one conversation. There's only a handful of times where we've had to address the same issue multiple times within a short time frame. And so I feel like whenever that happens, we try to set up some type of framework of check-ins. We've done it a couple times. I can't say that we're consistent with the whole check-in thing. I think we've only really implemented check-ins after major disagreements and being like, oh, like this was good to talk about. Like we should probably check in with each other once a week and see how we're feeling. Maybe that would resolve some of these like minor issues that have just built up over time because they weren't being spoken about. I know like even with the check-ins, it would kind of be the same exact issue of me feeling like I was the one that had to check in and initiate the conversations, and I kind of just wanted him to have the same level of concern about these topics and those types of things for me to not feel like I have to be the one to bring it up for the conversations to happen. Last time we did check-ins, I feel like it was definitely a little more even as to who was bringing up the check-ins and who was initiating it, but I feel like life just gets busy and we get in our own worlds, and honestly when things are good, I feel like we kind of fall off of those check-ins, which we probably need to be better at that, you know, because I think they should be there for the good times and the bad times. So whenever we're like chilling, we don't typically check in. I think we argue often, but we rarely get in fights, I would say. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree. You know, there's arguments in every relationship because no two people can see like eye to eye on everything. So in our daily life, in our relationship, it's like if we have an argument, we're gonna work to try to resolve it in like the best way possible. So like just like through like thinking it through and like talking about it like grown adults. So I feel like that is the reason why the relationship works, because there can't be a relationship without respect. So just respecting the other person's space, their intelligence, their thoughts, and like if you have that with any relationship outside of romantic, it's gonna breed a great relationship for both people. And I feel like that is here present in that relationship.
And now for the internet's favorite question: how do we handle finances in a relationship? So I feel like for us, we definitely fall under like the 50-50 blanket. I feel like we kind of go back and forth sometimes as far as like major bills, like for paying rent and things like that. I feel like it's 50-50. I will say though, a lot of the times when we go out to eat and do things like that, dapo does typically pay unless I'm just like particularly ballin', and then I will pay. So I feel like it's either 50-50 or one of us covers it. Speaking for myself and what I think I see for both of us, we are kind of like on a path of figuring out what we want to do with our lives, and just like generally trying to figure out what's going on right now in the world. And so for that reason, I feel like we're kind of like in the same bracket as far as like how much we make and what we're doing. And so for that reason, it's not like one of us is like balling and the other one isn't. I would say we're pretty even. And just because we've moved around so much and like we've done a lot of things that just take quite a bit of money, I feel like the responsibility kind of goes back and forth between both of us. And personally for me, I don't really have an issue with that. I will say like it would be so lovely if someone could pay all my bills and take care of things for me, but that's not like a requirement that I have in my mind. And I'm with dapo because I like dapo genuinely, and if he wanted to pay all my bills, I wouldn't be mad. But I don't think I would like leave him for someone who can pay my bills just because if they wanted to they would, or some type of shit like that, you know? Like that's not something I particularly place value on. I like dapo and I like who he is, and we're both just like working to figure out life, so I don't really feel any necessary like need for like the responsibility to be solely on him. And I don't have a problem paying for things if I need to pay for it, because I'm the one that could handle it at the time. And if he wants to pay for things, or he's the one that could handle it at the time, like I'll let him pay. Like I don't really have an issue in that sense.
Yeah, in terms of finances, I definitely say it's like a 50-50 thing. There's times where, you know, one of us is struggling more than the other, and it kind of flips back and forth because we're young adults living in a major city. So in terms of finances, like we're working to build like more of a savings and like something to where like we are more stable to where we can take vacations when we want to, and we're in like the beginning process of like getting to a point to where we do have like more of an abundance. We spend our money like to things that we cherish, so a lot of the money we spend is like on food, trying different places around Seattle. We both work really hard so that we can get each other things that the other wishes that they would have. Having someone to split those big bills is definitely great because it's just like we're there for each other. And I would definitely say Sydney has more bills.
I had a reckless upbringing when it came to money, for sure. So I just have a lot of like residual stuff that I've been paying on.
We definitely do our best to, provide for what each other needs and just basically work hard together to build something.
Yeah, and I would say we live very comfortably just because of the things that we be doing throughout the week and the days. I wouldn't say that we're like struggling in any sense. Our baseline is pretty secure, it's pretty solid, and I think it is just kind of like division of responsibility, and when we're in a surplus being like, oh, I got you, like I'll handle this, or like I'll do this, da 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 da, or in like a little bit of a deficit, be like, can you cover me for this? But overall, I wouldn't like consider us to be like struggling. We never really had like an initial topic about like what our expectations were financially. It kind of just like fell into this, and it's been working for us. And so yeah, that's kind of like where we've existed, and it's been cool.
Yeah, it's I feel like it's a kind of a healthy way of finances that we look at, because it's not like counting the dollar for everything someone gets someone. It's sort of like, hey, I got this, don't worry about it. Like just sort of like providing for each other as if you would for a friend, like someone in need. It's not it's not
tick for tack or nothing like that. Okay, so moving on to a completely different, I guess, sector of the questions. One of the questions that I thought was pretty cool is, what would you describe unconditional love and sacrifice to be? And what does that mean to you? So I feel like my definition of love has transformed through the years. Shout out to Bell Hooks and All About Love, because that was one major book that kind of changed a lot of my perceptions on love and what unconditional love is and what it means to express love. And so actually, honestly, I don't think I have an answer to what I believe unconditional love is. I think I'm more familiar with maybe what it isn't. I think I just kind of move in a way where I avoid what I have felt unconditional love to not be. My parents were very loving and supportive folks growing up, but I never truly felt like an extreme closeness to them because I never really felt safe to express who I was truly. And so in that sense, I feel like for me, unconditional love feels like a space where I can be myself and also provide a space where someone can be themselves, regardless of whether it's good, bad, or ugly. I guess that would be like the best explanation of what I think unconditional love is, and it's just providing a safe space but also boundaries, like a safe space with boundaries. I don't really know that I could say I know what unconditional love is, but I know that I try to provide a space for Dapo where he feels free to continue to grow and feels free to continue to express himself in whichever way he wants to and pleases, and provide support when I can, and also provide boundaries when they're needed. And so that's kind of like what unconditional love means to me.
I would define unconditional love as understanding that you can get through it and there's actually nothing in your way but boundless love. And just like tapping into that by, just like being there for yourself, I feel like is what really reflects in your relationship and my relationship with Sydney. If I'm showing up in the ways I need to for myself, it's going to naturally reflect my relationship with Sydney, because I'm best when I'm well taken care of. And so I know that if I'm doing what I need to do to, be there for myself, that appreciation is going to flourish in the relationship, which is something I do see every day with us. And as far as what sacrifice means, I would say sacrifice is just, maybe the little things like I didn't want to get Chinese today, but I know she wants Chinese, so we can get Chinese, stuff like that,
I would say, honestly, like the biggest sacrifice we've both made at separate times in the relationship is when we've moved. That jump from Fresno, where we're both from, to Los Angeles was very much, I feel like, a sacrifice on my end, because we really moved for Dapo's ambitions and dreams and pursuing his passions. And It's not like I didn't want to move because I was very much ready to leave Fresno, but moving to Los Angeles is something I didn't ever particularly want to do. And so on my end, I kind of like took the leap to be like, okay, I really like this boy and I also want to leave Fresno, and he has invited me to come with him. So instead of being headstrong and being like, I never saw myself there and I'm never gonna move for a man, I was like, you know what, like I genuinely care about this person and I'd love to continue this relationship, and I think it'd be best if we lived together and if we were in the same space as this relationship progresses. And I don't think it always has to be like that, but at that time I thought that was the best decision for me and then also for the relationship. So I moved and it was like amazing. Like I really liked, well, I kind of like half liked Los Angeles. I enjoyed the move and exploring Los Angeles. Can't say that I wanted to be there long term though. Hence the move to Washington, which was very much like a dream of mine. And he's the one that actually suggested that we move to Seattle just because we both kind of like hit a point in Los Angeles where we weren't really happy there. And so I think in that sense, it was probably more of a sacrifice on his part versus mine, because he was now moving from a space that he wanted to be in initially to a space that I feel like he probably would never move to Seattle if it weren't for me, because Seattle was kind of like my dream and somewhere that I wanted to be. So I feel like sometimes that's what sacrifice looks like. I feel like sacrifice just on like a very general daily level is like compromise in a lot of ways. I think sacrifice and compromise are two separate things, but I think they cross over a lot in our relationship. And like Dapo was talking about, like recognizing that if the other person wants to do something, it doesn't have to be something that we 100% want to do, but willing to be like, you know what, yeah, I could eat Chinese food because like Dapo wants Chinese food today and I don't have to disagree because it wasn't my first idea or like the first thing that I would truly want to do. And so I would say those are like small ways that we sacrifice.
So as we're now hitting the 3-year mark in our relationship, the seriousness about the future of the relationship is coming up, and I want to propose to Sydney, and I hope she feels the same way about me. I would love for us to, live happily ever after for the rest of our lives together.
I most definitely do want an engagement. That's not something that I really am like conflicted on. I feel like kind of going back though to like the family relationship and stuff, I feel like it's still like a very big source of like anxiety for me, just because to me, like an engagement and a wedding and going through that process is really important. And I feel like right now, personally, I feel like if Dapo were to propose to me and tell his family, like it wouldn't be like overwhelming excitement. Like I'm almost bracing for like a disagreement or for them to have an issue and a problem with that, and not embrace it in a way that's just like, oh, we're happy to see that you guys are happy. So for me, I feel like it's something that I'm still a little anxious about, and I'm kind of working through not caring what people think as much, but it's kind of difficult because I think it's really important what Dapo's family thinks of me and how they view the relationship. And so understanding that as of right now, I truly feel like if Dapo were to tell his mom and his family that he proposed to me, like I really don't feel like they would just be happy for the happy sake. Like I really feel like there would be problems, and for that reason it makes me not want to have to go through that. But I do think all in all, regardless of what actually goes down, I do know that I see myself being with Dapo for a very, very long time. And so I think it's just kind of like pushing past a lot of like the smaller issues and like the concerns of other people, and the fact that like it's not just us in our own little world. Well, it kind of is, but also like at the same time, it's very much not. And there's other people's emotions and opinions at play. I want to be with Dapo and I want to be here, and I genuinely love him.
And yeah, I think love is also a commitment to defending and being there for someone. So I feel like sometimes in love you do have to take a stand. I'm always there to protect Sydney's heart, and I feel like that's a very important part of a relationship. I want to be the one to be there for her.
That was pretty much all of the questions that y'all had asked, and I feel like it really covered a lot of the topics that I also just wanted to talk about. I feel like a part of me is really happy that we recorded this, just because now it gets to be kind of like this artifact within our relationship, and regardless of whatever happens after this, we can always look back and be like, oh, this is where we were February 2024, like what's changed, what's the same, like what's improved, what's gotten worse, And so I feel like a part of me though is like a little anxious to like post this though, just because like I really don't want anyone's opinion from the internet about my relationship unless they're like girl, that's a red flag, you should leave him. I don't see that being a thing. That's why it's also just like important to post videos like this though, because I think it's cool for people to be able to see this and disagree with what they'd like to disagree with and agree with, and take notes on what they do like and what's reflected in their own relationships or what they would want reflected in their own relationships. And so that's why I feel like this video was important to make, not only for our own growth and tracking who we are as people, but also being very transparent about what's going on in our relationship and this aspect of our lives, because I feel like it's really hard to see what's actually happening in a relationship from an outside perspective. Even though a lot of this video is very much just like off the top of our head, it wasn't like scripted fully. We have still had to like pause for seconds and talk about it and then push play. So you never really get to see the full picture of someone's relationship. But I think it's really nice that I feel like this channel is a space for me to be able to share these types of thoughts and be honest with y'all in ways that I can be honest.
Yes.
Any last words?
My last words is just, I love you.
Oh. Well, yes, thank you for watching, and until next time, I will talk to y'all soon. Okay, bye.
Bye.